This 39 Dunedin News Bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on 39 Dunedin News, an uncertain future for students. Aoraki Polytechnic's Dunedin campus could be closing. Our future Albert Einsteins, an annual science fair showcases the work of local school children. And fighting to save their public gardens, why Mosgiel residents are angry at a proposed site for their new pool. Good evening Dunedin, I'm Callum Proctor. Students at the local Aoraki Polytechnic campus are anxious about the future of their studies. The institution is considering a merger which could see the Dunedin campus closed. But there may be a silver lining.
Staff and students at the local Aoraki Polytechnic campus are in limbo as the Timaru-based organisation considers a merger with CPIT in Christchurch. That could mean the Dunedin campus is closed and its students may be picked up by Otago Polytechnic. As explained by the National President of the New Zealand Union of Students' Associations from Wellington.
Seems like the local polytech here in Dunedin will take on those students, but they are concerned about the type of course that they're doing won't be offered the way it is, and they might lose some of the culture that's built up at Aoraki in Dunedin. Yeah.
McCourt's worried about the lack of student representation at Aoraki, which doesn't have a students' association. He's working to help establish one so students' rights are upheld if the merger goes ahead. And he says the transfer of courses to Otago Polytechnic would be welcomed by the union as well as those affected.
There aren't too many students in the scheme of Aoraki, and certainly not in the grand scheme of Otago Polytech. So it should be fairly easy to transfer those students. And look, some of them are really looking forward to coming over to Otago Polytech. The photography students, for example, are looking forward to use of the dark room over at OP. So it's not all bad. We just want to make sure that these courses that are very special continue in the way that they are.
Aoraki's Dunedin campus has 160 full-time equivalent students and 14 full-time staff. It offers courses in journalism, film, photography, beauty, massage, hairdressing and early childhood study. And McCourt says the Polytechnic is one of many regional institutions suffering from inadequate funding.
Undoubtedly, the urges are being driven by the financial constraints that are being put on regional polytechs in particular by the government.
Aoraki is yet to make a decision on the merger, and Otago Polytechnic's waiting in the wings for an outcome, as are students and staff. Rosie Mannins, 39 Dunedin News.
An investigation is underway to determine the cause of a fire at a central city pub. Firefighters were called to the Bog Bar and Restaurant at 7 o'clock last night. The fire is believed to have started in an office above the pub on the corner of George and London Streets. Patrons were evacuated when an alarm was triggered by the blaze. No one was injured and firefighters managed to extinguish the fire within half an hour. The first floor office within the building is gutted and other parts of the building are water damaged. That includes the bar and kitchen. Arson hasn't been ruled out in relation to the incident. Well, residents are getting an insight into the scientific world through the eyes of children. School pupils' research displays are being set up at a local museum for an annual science fair, and the event is already proving to be informative.
When you're among hundreds of science projects, it's not easy to stand out. But Fairfield school pupil Isabel Daly has done it. Her homemade hydraulic arm is among the projects catching people's attention at this year's Aurora Otago Science and Technology Fair. The machine uses syringes and water to move different parts of the arm, and it's taught this inquisitive youngster a ton.
Hydraulics is used lots, it's used in like cranes and lifts and stuff, machinery.
The Science and Technology Fair is running for the next week, with the doors opening to the public from Wednesday. Judging is underway, with pupils being interviewed about what they've researched and why. The projects will be looked over later on as well. The fair's convener says they've attracted some exceptionally interesting projects this year.
The ones that stand out are the ones where they've done it because it's an interest to them, or they basically seen something that they want to find out more about, or they just asked a question and find out what's the answer.
Sexton says this event is often a pathway into further science programs, and lots of the teens who put projects in here end up studying at Otago University. That knowledge makes this year's support even more special.
This is the highest number we've had of senior entries this year for probably a good decade. Year 7 and 8 tend to do it as part of the school projects for science. Anyone who's doing year 9, 10 and above is doing this in addition to schoolwork. So these are students who are doing it on top of everything else.
With more than 24 schools from across the region taking part in the fair, judges have their work cut out for them. They'll be picking out the best of the best, ahead of a formal prize giving on Sunday. But no matter who comes out on top, local minds have just become a bit more inquisitive, thanks to this decades-old annual science fair. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
The theft and destruction of a car is being investigated by police, along with several burglaries from the weekend. Officers found a Toyota Caldina crashed at the corner of Royal Terrace and London Street early Saturday. It had been stolen just hours earlier from Ings Avenue in St Clair. Police say the car was left unlocked with keys inside it, and a child's seat and snow chains are missing from the vehicle. Meanwhile, a church in North Road has been broken into and electronic equipment stolen. Police say missing items include a television, laptop, monitor and speakers. A proposal to build a new swimming pool in Mosgill's Memorial Gardens has some residents riled up. It's one of 4 sites being considered for the multi-million-dollar aquatic complex, and the newly formed group is vowing to fight to save the town's remaining green space.
Rallying to save Mosgill's remaining green space. This group of Tyree residents opposed the use of Memorial Gardens for a new pool complex. The site's one of several being considered, as well as the existing pool location. And Chairman Brian Miller says this group is quickly gaining momentum.
We've only been going a week and I've had over 30 odd people contact me, and we formed the group, and the group's had people contacting them, and so it's really quite a groundswell, and it's of all ages as well.
2 other locations within Memorial Park are also being considered. Miller says the Hands-Off Memorial Gardens group isn't against the proposal for a new pool, just the proposal to build it within the gardens.
It's an area that's been put together by the people of Mosgill and the Tyree about 50 or 60 years ago. It wasn't built by the council staff, it was done with donations and that by local people, and we want to preserve that. It's last of the sort of the green areas that we've got in Mosgill.
Miller says if the pool's housed within the gardens, it'll be the latest example of green space forfeiture in favour of commercial development on the Tyree. And he says those decisions stem from inadequate consultation between the area's elected representatives and the public.
Our community board has let us down completely. They are supporting this site, this preference, and as an elected board, they have not gone to the public and asked the public what they thought about this particular site.
The Hands Off Memorial Gardens group has just a few days to rally additional support, with the Dunedin City Council accepting public submissions on the pool's site selection until the end of the week. Ruby McAndrew, 39 Dunedin News.
Still to come on 39 Dunedin News, we find out the calibre of this year's Dunedin Secondary Schools Poetry Competition, and later how a Dunedin fringe arts project's having a positive effect on local music.
Every reason, every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell menswear, it fits.
Wake up time And another frantic day ahead for Haraway's oat singles. With 3 delicious flavours in each pack, they don't last long with this family. They're so convenient and tasty, and they're ready in seconds. Haraway's oat singles are the ideal breakfast or snack on the run for today's busy families. And there's a flavour to suit everyone. Beat the rush and make sure you get your favourite flavour. Haraway's oat singles. Try new Kiwi Favourites Caramel Variety Pack.
Discover New Zealand's most innovative museum, Toitu Otago Settlers Museum. 14 stunning galleries, 3 distinct architectural styles, and 1 million intriguing stories are yours to discover at Toitu Otago Settlers Museum. Open daily next to Dunedin Railway Station and with free admission. Toitu Otago Settlers Museum.
For 30 years, Southern Clams have harvested New Zealand littleneck clams in the coastal waters of Otago. Hand harvesting to order at the right place and time ensures perfection of every clam you eat. New Zealand littleneck clams harvested for you by Southern Clams.
Hedges are something we almost take for granted. A good hedge needs regular maintenance to look its best and to add value and character to your property. For all your hedge care needs, call the team at SGC Services on 0800 783 453.
Big Orange for all your movies, records, books and games. Pre-loved needs and vinyl records, 45s, DVDs. A South Dunedin family-owned business for over 15 years. Check us out on Facebook, opposite Westpac on the sunny side of King Edward Street.
Tune into Girls Talk on Dunedin Television, where we show you what's hot in Dunedin.
Welcome back. Almost $50,000 is being awarded to 3 local business entrepreneurs. The money from Chorus and Alcatel-Lucent is part of the city's Gigatown win. It's going towards projects by entrepreneurs using gigabit internet speed. Projects include a new internet storage platform, a hazard identification app, and a learning program for dyslexic children. There's $200,000 available in the Gigastart Fund. Applications open for the second round of grants at the end of the month. And now on that note, let's take a look at today's financial summary. Firstly to the markets, and the NZX 50 starting the week strongly, finishing today up 37 points to 5,958. To the exchange rates, and the Kiwi dollar up against the Australian slightly today, but down against the other major currencies that we monitor. Well, poems by the city's teenage writers are about to be shared through an annual competition. Local poet David Eggleton is judging this year's entries in the Dunedin Secondary School's poetry competition, and he's here to tell us more about it. Good evening to you, David.
Good evening.
So tell us firstly, how many young writers entered this year?
Well, the range was from across from Palmerston down to Milton, and including Dunedin, and we ended up with about 30 entries altogether.
What's the calibre of the poetry been?
Very good. There's a lot of talent out there, and part of this part of the competition is to raise awareness of poetry and sort of create a sense that poetry is a sort of a very valid form of self-expression and so forth. So some of the poets have been writing for quite a while, and others for not so long, and so the standard was a little bit varied, a little bit eclectic, so quite diverse really, yeah.
So how do you go about judging a competition like this?
Well, you look first of all, I think, for sort of really strong emotion connected to strong and powerful use of language. So the writers should have some sort of command of language, should also have something they wish to express. So there's a whole range of subjects covered, and just the traditional poetic ones of sort of lakes and the moon and the sea and things like that, and also sort of family, pets and relationships. So the whole gamut of topics covered, really.
So how does this competition, I guess, help young poets and young writers?
Well, it is to kind of create an awareness, to try to sort of create a sort of flax roots movement amongst young people that poetry's still very valid. In fact, even more so than ever, a good way of communicating with their ideas and their thoughts about life and so forth.
Are you about to do the judging, or have you done the judging?
The judging has taken place, and we've selected 3 winners, and when they've been notified, the 3 finalists, first, second and third, their detailed names will be published and their poems on the rightnow.org website. And they'll also be invited to read with as part of the National Poetry Day at the end of the month.
Will this work be shared publicly? Will we get a chance to see it ourselves?
Yeah, the poems will not only be on the website, but they'll also be turned into posters, and they'll be presented or put up at secondary schools, intermediate schools, and in the libraries around Dunedin as well.
How popular is poetry these days? Can you make a living out of it?
Well, it's not sure that you can actually make a living out of it, but I think it's a very enjoyable art form, and for those who are good at it, I think they enjoy it as a craft, and it's also something that you can use to communicate with people. I notice that in rock festivals nowadays they actually have spoken word stages, and poetry slams are popular. I believe there's a series of poetry slams coming up at the Athenaeum here in the Octagon, and so in general poetry is very much alive and kicking, very vital art form.
All right, David Eggleton, thanks for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you.
All right, after the break on 39 Dunedin News, Pirates caps off the perfect season in women's club rugby, and a few showers are on the way tomorrow. Details coming up, and our look at the region's weather.
Sir Bob Charles, New Zealand's greatest golfer and still going strong.
I'm sure that Sportsville was a contributing factor to my success, and I'll continue to use it.
Sir Bob Charles Sportsville, a product so good he puts his name to it.
Well, I believe Sportsville helps maintain your quality of life.
Now being used by active men and women globally to support strength and mobility.
It works for me.
Sir Bob Charles Sportsville in the new all-black pack. Call now for the Sportsville special, 0800 502 402.
Big Orange, for all your movies, records, books and games. Pre-loved needs and vinyl records, 45s, DVDs. A South Dunedin family-owned business for over 15 years. Check us out on Facebook, opposite Westpac on the sunny side of King Edward Street.
Moving around the corner, overseas, Best Removals Otago Limited, specialists in household removals and business relocations, as well as packing materials, secure storage. Best Removals can do it all. 0800 266 834.
128 tracks, dynamic automation, dual faders, and totally digital. This is state-of-the-art music production. The SSL Digital Console. You'll find one in the BBC studios in London, another at CBS studios in New York, and now one at the University of Otago. It's a good reason why our sound now sounds even better. My name is Maddie Parkins Craig, and this is my place in the world.
Take your place in the world. Every reason, every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
Pregnant? Need to talk? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Pregnancy counselling services are here to help. It's free, it's confidential. Call us now on 0800 773 462.
Welcome back. Young local musicians are immersing themselves in the modern Dunedin sound. They're involved in a project run by the Dunedin Fringe Arts Trust, which is having a significant impact.
Getting amped. High school musicians learn the tools of the trade at this music workshop. Dozens of youth are taking part in the Amped Music Project, learning what it takes to be a successful musician from established Dunedin artists.
There's nothing else like this for these kids, you know, so if they play rugby, there's a lot that they have access to, but if they're into music, maybe not so much, so it's really important that it exists, I think.
Sinnott says there's widespread support for the project from local musicians, with many of them putting their hands up to be involved as mentors. Even those that don't have the time are supporting the project in other ways. The young musicians involved say meeting some of the local industry veterans is a great experience, which gets their foot in the door of the modern Dunedin music scene.
What I want to get out of this is, meeting bands, like I said before, just to have gigs with in the future, and also knowing places of like where we can have gigs.
The program runs for 10 weeks and is made up of workshops and all ages gigs. Sinnott says these teens are genuinely talented young musicians, so the experience is invaluable in nurturing their fledgling careers, and it's making all the difference for some.
There was young guy you probably heard of, Jake Cropley, did the Amped project before, and he's doing really well now. He's very popular and he's doing a lot of great gigs. So yeah, there's definite successes coming out.
The annual music project's dependent on funding and has struggled in the past, but Sinnott hopes to keep it running, all to give young local musos the boost they need to turn their potential careers up to 11. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
For the second consecutive year, Pirates are the victors in the local Women's Premier Club rugby competition. The side beat University 31 points to 13 in Saturday's final. And for the undefeated Pirates, it's a perfect end to a perfect season.
In what's becoming a familiar scene, a joyous Pirates Premier side celebrates a convincing final win over University in the Metropolitan Women's Contest. It's the second year in a row they've claimed victory. But Captain Angie Sesifa says getting the win wasn't easy, with the varsity team putting up a fight.
They challenged us up front and out wide, and we had to do a lot of adjusting during the game, especially with their defence. But we picked up on that, and we were able to play to their weaknesses, which I'm proud of our girls for doing. But they really challenged us. I think they did their homework, and that's good.
The Pirates side started strong, dominating possession throughout the first 40 minutes. Scoring 21 points while conceding only 3 points to varsity. And University captain Megan Manson says while they began to bounce back in the second half, it was just a little too late.
You can't start slow against a team like Pirates. They're just foot down from the very first whistle, and we didn't help ourselves in that respect.
Despite the loss, Manson says University's had a great season, with the team suffering only a couple of defeats on the way to the final. And she says it goes to show the strength of Dunedin's female sides in what's traditionally a male-dominated sport.
There's no reason to say that we're less competitive. It's, in the end it's still about your club, it's about your teammates and the pride of it. So, just as competitive.
And while these teams are at the top of their game, Sesifa's advice for young players is to not take it too seriously, instead focusing on enjoying the sport.
You know, when you first start out, just have fun. Don't get serious till later on, club season and that, but just keep trying. keep pushing on.
Now the season's over, it's time to celebrate, but any rest might be short-lived for both teams, with call-ups likely for Otago Spirit competing in the Women's National Provincial Championship later this year. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
Now recapping tonight's top stories on 39 Dunedin News. Aoraki Polytechnic might close its Dunedin campus if it merges with CPIT in Christchurch, placing local students and staff in limbo. Research by hundreds of school children is being showcased at an annual science fair, giving residents an insight into young discovery. And Mosgiel residents are forming a group to save the town's memorial gardens, earmarked for the possible development of a new pool complex. And now let's have a look at what's happening in tomorrow's ODT. We welcome in Bruce Query. Evening, Bruce.
Good evening. King's High School refuses to blink and is preparing to take on the Ministry of Education to court over instructions to set up an enrolment scheme. So we have confirmation from the Board of Trustees of that issue. It's a story which has been ongoing. There are plans that, to create a new pedestrian-only space in Dunedin's warehouse precinct, but they could be hosed down partly by concerns from the fire service. Firefighters are concerned that closing down 2 one-way sections of Jetty Street will create issues for access for the emergency services. Over to Wanaka and Hawea, where there's concerns about a whooping cough outbreak. The Public Health South has been notified of 66 possible cases. There's a handful of confirmed cases, but several more test results due to come in soon. The future of Tiwai aluminium smelter and the jobs of 3,500 people has been assured for now. The smelter owners have secured a new contract with Meridian Energy. We've got business reaction, we've got analysis, and we've been down to Invercargill, heard what the Mayor's got to say about that, plus people on the street. Our travel section will be going over to New Orleans, and our sports department is going to the Dunedin Club Rugby Sports Awards tonight, and so we'll have all the results from that.
All right, busy paper tomorrow. Thanks, Bruce. And that's our news for this Monday. On behalf of the 39 Dunedin News team, have a very good evening.
This 39 Dunedin News Bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.